Okay, so that done. Let's move on to tonight's topic, which is crime and thrillers, which is it kind of means something to me because as a teenager, I clearly remember discovering crime novels for the first time. So my go-to were kind of Wilbur Smith and Desmond Bagley and Dick Francis, a wholly non-diverse range of authors, but they really gave me a sense for stories that were packed full of tension and a threatening air, and you just wanted to read from beginning to end. And I assume you see lots of crime novels and many thrillers crossing your desk in your work, Sal. Am I right?
I do, and now it's one of my favorite genres, if we can lump them together: crime, thriller, and mystery. I absolutely love working on them.
And what do you? Yeah, so go on.
Just that, really. I really enjoy working them, and I like, helping work out things with the plots, and I really enjoy, finding plot holes. I know that sounds horrible, but when I find plot holes, one of the really enjoyable things is then working with the author. Oops, I've just disappeared. Sorry.
Sally, we've lost your video.
Yeah, hold on.
While you fix your video.
No, I'm back.
Oh, no, you're all gone again. Maybe is your connection a bit loose? Or
I think it is, but I'm back again now.
Okay.
One of the things I really enjoy is brainstorming with an author. If I find a plot hole, is how to fix it. I absolutely love that. It's one of my favorite things to do.
And I know this because we've talked many times about books that you've worked on and on books that I've read. And you've kind of given me the inside story, if you like, sometimes, how the story has shaped and developed over time. What are some of the, when you're faced with a crime manuscript, Sal, what are some of the common issues that you see? Let's get right into the detail. What are the problems?
So everyone, I assume, is going to think I'm going to say the obvious things, plotting, pacing, tension. Of course, all these things are really important. But one of the really, I would say the paramount thing that I find when I'm working on thrillers is research. And I think people get very carried away with the plotting, which is great. You've got to have a good plot. But when you venture into the world of crime or death or law in any kind of way, and most thrillers, or certainly crime thrillers or even mysteries, take a very strong step into that world, you've really got to know your stuff. You've really got to know what you're talking about. You've really got to understand that world, and you can't fudge it. You can't fudge things about forensics. You can't fudge things about a police procedure. You can't fudge things about what civilians are allowed to do and not allowed to do, all this kind of thing. And I think when we were talking, Tom, we talked about a very common thing I see weirdly is people talking about dead bodies, people talking about how quickly they say she fell into the water 6 hours ago and we've just pulled her unrecognizable bloated body. I don't know why I did that accent, I'm sorry. Just pulled this unrecognizable bloated body out of the water. And bodies don't actually really bloat that quickly. It's things like this that can really show off the fact that you haven't done your research. And there's so many resources online, so many ghastly websites that give you all the details you need. But also, I always say the best thing to do is try and talk to somebody, try and talk to a professional.
Yeah. And this is an interesting point because there are already comments coming in chat, and so I can see your eyes drifting to chat and getting distracted. Stop doing that.
I can't see anything in chat today. What happens is very occasionally I'll just see a random message and I don't know why.
Oh, I thought you'd seen one, but anyway, let's go back to the point. Jim and Holger have both mentioned Graham Bartlett, who is a former police superintendent. I'm not sure what level he was, but in our local area in the UK. and he now advises writers on, crime scene investigations and all the details of forensics. Former DCS, thank you, former DCS of Sussex Police. And you can find Graham actually on Twitter. In fact, I've got his handle here, so excuse me 1 second, Sal, while I write it. It's at GB Police Advisor.
And I think there are by all accounts, he's fantastic. And there are quite a few people like this. And in fact, you'd be surprised how many people, how many professionals, forensic professionals, doctors, policemen, if you're willing to buy them lunch,
right,
or dinner, they're very happy. I mean, you have to approach them correctly, and you mustn't, what they don't want to hear is huge details about your book. What if you say, I've got a body that's gone into the water, how long is that going to take? Then they'll, but I know people who've sort of quite messed up these conversations because they've given people the whole plot, the whole story, and really, they just want to have your questions, answer your questions, have a pleasant evening, show you pictures of their kids or whatever,
Yeah.
But it can be, people are very, very willing to meet up, I find.
Yeah. And so research and actually talking to people who know these facts and know the details is time invaluably spent.
Yeah.
Okay. And what other areas, Sal?
So the first thing, obviously, is plot.
Yeah.
And any book, obviously, you need to plan your plot very carefully. But when you're writing, we call this crime and thriller, crime mystery thriller. You've really got to know where your ending is. And I know a lot of people are not thrilled, no pun intended, about having it all worked, excuse me, about having it all worked out beforehand. But with a whodunit, you've got to really have your ending clear in mind. Lots of people I know who write this genre write the ending first and then write the book towards it, which is a very good way of doing it, actually. And remember, it can always change until your publisher sent it to the printer. You can always, up to a certain point, you can always change it. So certainly when you're writing, so even if you've written an ending and you really know what you're writing towards, if you suddenly have a brainwave, you can change it. That's fine. But plan your plot, know where the end of the book is, work towards it, know your destination before you set out. This is really important when you're writing this kind of stuff.
Okay.
Obviously, tension is really important throughout. Obviously, pacing is really important throughout. This is not like literary fiction where you can meander with gorgeous writing for pages. This is, got to keep it all going. So you'll find, I've made my own list here of general rules for thrillers, but
okay,
online you'll find that people are going to be sitting there with their own list and saying, well, why, this is what my list says. Well, yes, because it's all the same kind of stuff.
Tried and tested.
So, yes. So people, the general advice, and this is the advice that I would also give, is with this genre, always start with action. Now, as soon as I say that, it's true that, of course, it's a rule that's by the real masters, it's often broken, instantly broken, this rule. And, there's this one mystery writer that I always mention, Elizabeth George. She's such a good writer, and her plots are so well crafted. The Inspector Linley mysteries have been going on for 20 years or something now. And she starts with these very, I gave you the example, I always remember there's one with the postman sort of cycling down the lane, whistling, and he stops to talk to somebody, and none of these people we ever see again. And she gets away with it. She partly gets away with it because we know it's her and we know it's going to kick in and be great. But, you know, at the end of a chapter of him just noodling around and delivering letters, and we never see any of them again, he finds the body. But as a general rule, and it's a very good rule, always start with action. And thriller crime is a very, very forgiving genre. Your reader knows that they're not going to understand everything straight away. They're comfortable with that. They'll trust that you will explain it later, ideally sooner rather than too much later. And as long as they get a sense of what's going on pretty quickly, all will be well. So you can have, you know, the gun going off, the body falling, it doesn't have to be that much action, to be honest. It can simply be, you know, a knock on the door and your protagonist answering the door. You know, but you want to get to paciness and page turning very quickly in this genre, unless you're absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess with someone like Elizabeth George that you mentioned, you develop a reputation that actually that gentle, almost gentle side is still building that frisson of.
It absolutely is, because you know something's coming. You know something's coming any minute. Right. I mean, I say you have to be absolutely brilliant. That's presupposing. It sounds as if I'm presupposing that people here are not absolutely brilliant, and of course, everyone here may very well be. So but it is just a case of it's more a case you've really got to hook us in, and that's what Elizabeth George is very good at being very casual about. She's, you know, I'll get them in a minute. They can wait.
Yeah.
But that's, you know. That's a very brave game to play.
Just a couple of Sal, let me just pause you there, because there's a conversation going on in chat around show don't tell, which is slightly off topic, but we will be covering that in another session, one of our Q&As coming up, I think. So I can't remember who posted a set question, Carol, I think, but we will certainly get to that. Probably not tonight. It's not the main topic, but we will be covering that later. And Julie, with your question, could you pop that question in question and answer tab, and that would be fantastic. Thank you. Right, sorry, Sal, so we've got your list of 10 kind of I
don't even know if it's 10, could be loads.
Oh, is it?
Let me have a look. I'll tell you.
Well, I'll tell you when we get to 10.
It's 16 points.
Okay, so let's restart at the top. Well,
research was the first thing I said. Yeah. Tension, it's absolutely vital. It's not more important than plot, but it's as important as plot in this kind of book.
Yeah.
And, you know, we did a whole session on tension before. I'd be happy to revisit it if people want me to, but that it's absolutely vital. Plan your plot. This is really important. Know where the end of your book is and work towards it. As I just said, some people write the end of their book first, and remember that you can change anything. Always start with action, unless you're Elizabeth George. And remember that you don't have to spell things out too much for your readers. With this genre, they know that they're not gonna, it's all gonna be a bit confusing at first, and they're happy to wait as long as you bring us into the action as soon as we can. So that's as far as we got. Then I reiterate, so maybe you can say this isn't an extra point. I say again, the tension must be there from the first page, but not only for the reader, but for your protagonist. So, you know, your protagonist is sitting in their living room, everything's fine. They've had a hard day at the detective agency or the butchers or the, you know, wherever they work, because they're about to be drawn into something. They might not actually be a detective or a police person. There's a knock on the door, and somebody says, "You've got to come," or "Have you seen Susan?" or "Where have you been?" or, you know, whatever they say.
Yeah.
And so they themselves, your protagonist, ideally for them as well, from the first page, the tension's got to be there for them, because what you want in this kind of book is you want ideally your protagonist to be the one moving the action forward, doing the chasing, you know, either literally or metaphorically. You want your, you know, secretary turned murder investigator to be the one leading the action.
Yeah.
not the one being sort of passive. So that really helps to keep your reader sort of engaged with them. Any questions so far from you, Tom?
Well, not from me. I love these pointers, but there are some good questions coming in. But I think, should we wait till the end to go through all the questions?
So the next thing, and it's well, I say here it's a very well-worn trope of the genre. So let me just stop there and say this genre and tropes, like many other very popular genres, your reader actually expects a few familiar tropes. They not only expect them, but they sort of want them. And what you have to do then, the skill as the writer, is to give them their tropes, give them the knock on the door, but you've got to bring something a bit fresh and a bit new to it. If not new, then a bit, we don't want to feel we've seen it 100 times, 1,000 times before, even if we sort of have. The trick is to breathe a bit of new life into it. So a very well-known trope of the genre, I've said, but it works very well, which is why it's very well worn, is to give your protagonist an investment in the action, in the crime or in the mystery. Now, Sarah Paretsky, who writes the V.I. Warshawski series, absolutely cracking novels. She does this really, really well. The eponymous titular is what I meant to say. The titular heroine of the book, V.I., she nearly always either knows somebody involved in the crime one way or another, or a friend comes to her and says, there's nearly always a personal connection. So we know that she's got other work. We're aware throughout the book, she mentions her other work. She sometimes works on her other work, but the crime that we're dealing with, or the mystery that we're dealing with in this book, is almost always something that she's got a personal investment in. And that, of course, really ratchets it up for her, and it really ratchets it up for us as well.
Yeah.
You'll notice I'm mentioning female authors a lot, and that's partly because I feel that when you go online and start looking for examples of crime, you're going to see John Grisham, you're going to see all the ones. So I'm just trying to sort of widen it out a little bit.
I'm really glad you asked that, because like I said, my introduction to crime was very male biased, and so this is great. It's good to know.
And nothing wrong with it either. No. And don't we all wish we could write like John Grisham? I mean, there's no harm in it at all. But I'm just trying to widen things out a bit. So if we come back to tension, a good trope, and a very often used trope, or it's not even a trope almost, it's just a standard of these novels, is there's some kind of time limit. Your protagonist has got to work against some kind of time limit, and that ratchets attention up, and that keeps things going, and that's very good. But so, what is even better, say somebody's been kidnapped. This is what I said to you the other day, wasn't it? So someone's been kidnapped, so that they've said, if you don't give us the money in 72 hours, you'll never see him again. But then, so that's already tension. We've got to find him. Where could, that's all that tension. But then somebody says he hasn't got his insulin. If he doesn't get his insulin in the next 48 hours, so double time, tension, chaos, horror. So and time, tension, chaos, horror, that's the t-shirt. That's what you want for this genre. So a scary time limit, that's always very, very good. And that sort of da when they think they're on top of it, they think, okay, we've got 72 hours, okay, we can, I can get in touch and hire the circus troupe and do all the things they want me to do in that time. But no, so that's good. And you can see how enthralled you are, Tom, already, just by mentioning this.
I'm just making a note of your time, tension, chaos, horror. I'm going to print it on a t-shirt for you, Sal, for when we wrap up this series.
It's the sort of sums up the series, really, doesn't it? Now, obviously, this is a thriller, so that part of the excitement for the reader, the huge part of the excitement for the reader, is they want to try and work out who done it. That's from the very first page. They read the first page, they think, well, this postman looks shifty. I don't like the look of him. So right from the beginning, you want to start dropping little breadcrumbs for your readers. Not really big clues, but I mean, I say right from the beginning, not from the first page, but very early on, certainly by the second chapter, you want to start dropping in little breadcrumbs for them to pick up and follow, like Hansel and Gretel. Not quite so gothic and horrible, but little things that they can start thinking, oh, what was that?
Yeah.
Oh, what is this?
And again, I can immediately picture myself, Sal, in some of the books I've read, when you kind of you something's mentioned,
yeah,
and there's just a thing in your brain. It just hang on.
Yeah. And when we were talking, weren't we? And what I was going to say was that some of these are going to be real, and some of these are going to be red herrings. And that's, I've had a question about red herrings. We'll get to that. We'll come to that. So. Yeah. We were talking, when we were talking about this the other day, we were talking, is it in fact a John Grisham novel? Which one was it that we were talking about? The one that was made into a film with Harrison Ford.
We promised to go away and look this up, didn't we? And neither
we
of
did.
us have. One of our great listeners, tell us please, which John Grisham novel was made into a film featuring Harrison Ford? Let's see how long it takes to get an answer, because I can't
ages ago, in the 90s.
Oh, it's one of the first, was
one of his. Anyway, me and both my sisters we were reading it at the same time. We were all reading it, presumed innocent. There you go.
I prefer. So
you'll all know this moment, right? You'll all know this moment. And my sisters and I were reading it at the same time, and we all rang each other up. If you see what I mean, there was contact.
Yes.
Because we'd all picked up on this one little thing, which of course might have been nothing, but actually turned out to be really something. Which was, he very casually mentioned that the drinking glasses in the Harrison Ford character's home were the same as the drinking glasses in the other person's home, the murder victim's home. And we, all three of us, thought, why is he telling us? Why he's put that in? Why has he put that in? And we all remembered it, and it turned out to be really key. Now, I actually think perhaps John Grisham didn't mean us to pick it up quite so quickly.
Easily, all of us. Right.
But we did, and but that's the kind of thing that can be really important. Could you just excuse me for 2 seconds? I'm just
I just want to Jack Boyles, if I could add emojis, then I would, to your response, Star Wars. That really made me chuckle. Sorry
about that. So it's dropping little clues, and you want your reader to start ringing up their sister and saying, did you read the thing about the glasses? Do you think that means anything? That's the kind of thing you want them to do. Now, this is very hard. So the first thing you've got to do is get your plot down. Get your basic plot down first. Yep. Don't start trying to be clever initially. Get your basic plot down. That can be very difficult, and that can take a lot of time, and you've got a lot of twists and turns, because it's very important that you have a lot of twists and turns. You want some cliffhangers in there, you want some ta-da moments, all of these things. So just get your basic plot down with the first draft. It might not even be the first draft, it might be the second.
Yeah.
And then have a think about the clues you can put in. Now, I've spoken to authors who've had an idea for a clue. That's the thing that kicked everything off. So they might well have this one clue waiting to put in. That's absolutely fine. If you've got something and you're sure of it and you're solid about it, put it in. But once it's all there on the page and you're looking at it and you're seeing the shape of it, you can think, right, I can put, this is coming up 4 chapters away. Perhaps I could put something there. It's a real skill plotting one of these books. It's it's because it's like juggling.
But I can imagine why
it's like juggling.
I can imagine why this is so kind of enjoyable, and one of the parts that you enjoy so much about your work, Sal, because it's almost it's a jigsaw puzzle, isn't it?
It is. It's like juggling a jigsaw puzzle. It's like it's like doing a jigsaw puzzle while you're juggling. But it's so satisfying. It's so brilliant. And as I said, one of my very favorite things is if I find a plot hole, and inevitably I will find a plot hole because it's so hard to see them yourself. And sometimes it'll be something you could drive a bus through, and sometimes it'll just be a really small thing, but it'll be a really small. I worked on a book a few years ago. It was a tiny thing apparently, but we realized because this thing was wrong, it was like snagging your coat on a thorn. Everything unraveled.
Yeah.
Because this one little thing was wrong. It seemed like nothing. And I said, oh, by the way, this. And then we thought, oh God, actually, no, if this happens and everything. So it's really hard. So that's
So can we I've had a question about red herrings, and you mentioned it. Is now a good time to talk about that? Because I think Barb's asked for any good pointers about red herrings, how to use them.
Don't be too obvious. They've got to be convincing, and that's really hard. So if you say the man with the red beard looked shifty and walked away quickly, that's, unless you're playing a really clever double bluff, that's no one's going to be particularly fooled by that.
So it needs a light touch.
It needs a light touch, but it depends a lot on your characters. It depends a lot on the plot. Sometimes you can, if there's a sort of chaotic moment, very often I've noticed good thriller writers will drop something in a chaotic moment, and it's only later that you'll think, oh God, of course, yes, the blue car. I'd forgotten all about the blue car, but in that sort of moment of chaos.
I love it. So it's linked to pacing again, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's that kind of thing. But this comes back to the next thing that I was going to say, which is, I'm sorry. I mean, I hope that answered the question, but if not, please let me know, and I'm
sure Barb will let us know if not.
Yeah, but don't be over ambitious with your plot or your characters. In other words, don't make your protagonist a nuclear physicist unless you know enough about the subject, or you're certain that you can do enough research to a very high and accurate level. So, something you'll find online says choose your character according to your own capacities as well as your protagonist's own capacities. So, if you don't think, I know it'd be a great idea if we put this in a space station. Yeah, that sounds brilliant. Actually, a very good place for a thriller. But it's never been done, I don't think. Well, yes, I mean, some sci-fi things have probably done it, but you've really got to punch at your own weight. Well, punch a bit above your own weight, but you've got to, you've got enough trouble cut out with this genre without making it even harder for yourself. So stick to stuff that you're sure that you either know about yourself, or that you are sure that you can research. And when I say know about yourself, I don't mean in like huge detail. But I mean, like, if we go back to V.I. Warshawski, one of the main characters in her books is Chicago.
Yes,
is the south side of Chicago, and also the sort of very posh lakefront in Chicago. This is a place she knows absolutely back to front. And by the time we finished reading her books, you feel like you've been there. So it can be something that simple, and then the murder or whatever it is against the backdrop of Chicago, and that pulls the story along. So
so this is linked to a couple of comments we've had, Sal, actually, and because Ardell early on said, I break the rules. I enjoy many moves and books with airplanes doing things airplanes can't, like talking in the cockpit without a headset, which is absolutely fine, I guess. It's but equally we've had comments, at least two people in chat, sorry I can't remember the names of comments have passed, but one was a retired GP and gets irritated by obvious medical mistakes in books. Another is again talking about mistakes in in kind of medical related mistakes in books, and these things do jar. They can be frustrating, and you can appear out of your depth, I guess, if you're
that's exactly it. You do not want your reader, it's all well and good to think, that sounds dismissive, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound dismissive, but it's one thing to think, I know this isn't right, but I'm going to do it anyway. What you don't want is your reader to think, this person's an idiot, they've got no idea what they're writing about. Yeah. So it's a very fine line. If you do break the rules, hurrah, break the rules, put a footnote at the end of the book saying, I know this isn't possible, or better at the beginning, actually, better to put a page or two at the beginning and say, look, I've broken the rules here. Yeah, just enjoy it.
Enjoy it. That's a really good point. Yeah. Okay.
So what I was saying was, don't be over ambitious with your plot or your characters. And that comes into the next thing, which is basically don't bite off more than you can chew. Okay. Because if you do that, you'll get tied up in knots really easily. So again, don't go for nuclear physics if you can't really keep up with that. Which brings me to the next thing, or possibly the thing after that, which is you've done all your research. It's been so interesting and exciting for you. You felt your characters coming to life. You've found out all about nuclear physics. You can picture the hero, you can picture the heroine, you can picture the antagonist. It's all coming together. And you've done so much research, and you cannot wait to cram all that research into your book. And that's just so boring for the reader. So you've got to be really careful. If you're doing something like nuclear physics, just as it's a good example, just give the reader the information they need to know. Do not start telling them about when, Chernobyl or, 5 Mile Island or whatever happened and how it happened, unless it's really relevant to your plot, and unless it's absolutely vital for your reader to know it. With all this research, it will inform your writing, it will give confidence to your writing, it will give authority to your writing, but don't just push it all into your book just because you've learned it. It's really important.
You've almost got to learn to trust. Maybe it's not trust, but this comes up again and again, I think, about the fact that it's very easy to be too close. You're so close to it, and you've invested all this time and effort in that work that it's almost human nature to be able to want to show up, show that off and demonstrate.
Absolutely.
So it's a point. It's a really important point to make, I think.
And it's a really temptation to say, look, I know my stuff. Not only have I worked so hard, but I really know what I'm talking about. Look, I can talk about splitting the atom. Look, but you've got to. It's like every single session we do. What do I say? Think of your reader. It's really, really important. So, and of course, it comes back to pacing. As soon as you start information dumps about protons, the pacing just goes like this.
Yes. Yeah.
And you've lost your reader. So resist the temptation. If there's an important point about protons, if it's key, put it in, but keep it to a paragraph.
Okay.
Keep it to a paragraph.
Okay, so our questions are mounting up.
I've just got very few things to say then.
Okay.
So, I've already said genre tropes. Yes, do them, but be a bit fresh with them. Definitely chuck in some cliffhangers and lots of plot twists. These are important, and plan them ahead. Okay, this is what your readers want. So you need to plan these. Now, and the last thing I was going to say is, if you look online, I believe you will see lots of people suggesting short, sharp chapters in thrillers. You want to keep it snappy. I'm not sure that that's true. What I think works really well in a thriller is to have chapters of varying lengths. And this is, again, Elizabeth George, Sarah Paretsky, they both do this. They'll have a perfectly normal sized chapter, and then they'll suddenly have a chapter that's just a page. Yeah. And that really gets your attention. And then they go on to the next chapter. So this, I would say, rather than having short, snappy chapters, which is very Gumshoe, it's very Dick Tracy. And hey, look, if you want to do that, go for it. Go for it, do it.
Yeah.
It's.
I'm smiling because I'm totally a fan of what you've just described. I love that kind of I feel like it's keeping me on my toes.
Yeah.
Great. There's a lot of love for this list, Sally. A lot
Excellent. And I just made it up. No, I didn't. It's all true. It's all real.
We will, if people want to see, we will put it together a list somehow and either bring it along next month or send it. I think probably the easiest thing is we'll bring it along next month and
put it out.
Provide it. Yeah, so you can copy and paste it. Okay, can we move into a couple of questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
So this one really got my attention. This is a question from Julie. With so much fraud in cybercrime happening now, why is murder selling so much in comparison to stories published about fraud? That's a tough one. I don't know how you're going to answer that one, Sal, but it's quite an interesting one. It doesn't sell as well, does it?
Say it again, because
Basically, why does murder sell so much when stories about fraud don't?
Because murder scares us and fraud doesn't.
I love that. That's so true. Yeah, brilliant.
There you go. People like reading about what scares them.
Yeah, totally true. Right.
I mean, if you're Donald Trump, fraud will probably scare you more, but you know.
Yeah, good point. Okay, Francis asks, is it ever acceptable to interweave a mystery with the secondary story? For example, a main plot told from a police detective's point of view, alternated with episodes in his private life.
Oh yeah, that's great. Definitely do that.
I was thinking the same. Yeah, readers don't object from being pulled away from the procedural. Yeah, they love to find out what's going on, you know, at home.
And that again, coming back to the two, I'm going to stick with these two tonight. So Elizabeth George and Sarah Paretsky, you know everything about their private lives. You really invest in them, especially over a series. These are both women who write long series, and you really get to invest in the characters. Yeah, it's important.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I have an idea for a murder mystery for a fantasy setting. Any advice for a fantasy mystery?
It's a thriller.
Yeah.
And you know, you've got people called Katoth doing the murder instead of somebody called George. That's the difference. Which sounds very glib, and I'm sorry, I don't mean it to be glib. Focus on the thriller first and thicken out the fantasy element once you've got the plot down.
Okay. Holger has asked a couple of questions. One is, can we do a session about plotting?
Is this Holger Garden?
Yes, Holger Garden.
Hello, Holger. How you doing?
And it's Holger. He. Hi, Holger. Sorry about that. Research. If you say a place has an extra security barrier when really there's only one, do you have to own up to that in a pre-story note, or is that sort of thing just up to the author? I'm assuming, I mean, that level of detail.
I mean, if you're writing fiction, it's fine. But I do honestly suggest, if it's something really serious, like people talking, that doesn't sound serious, but it is, people talking in a cockpit without headphones, then I suggest you preempt it, because people are going to go, that's just not true. If it's something like adding an extra gate to somewhere, just say at the end, little page, you know, in the acknowledgements and stuff like that, I've added an extra gate. Tell you what, look at any crime book, you'll see the back of the book, they say this kind of stuff.
Yeah. There's a question coming from Jennifer in chat that I shouldn't be telling you, but Jennifer asks, what's the source of your brilliance, Sally? I should have kept that one to the very end.
It's my naturally curly hair.
So, and Ian, you've asked a question about the pacing report in Pro Writing Aid. I don't really have time to go into that today, but we do run a monthly Pro Writing Aid 101, which Chris Banks, our CEO, the founder of Pro Writing Aid, runs actually. I really suggest tuning in for that. The list is published on our webinar list on our website. As I said, it's once a month, and it's run as very much a Q&A. So if you've got questions about using the tool, anyway you want to go into a bit more detail than we can cover here, sign up for that if you can. Okay, sorry, I'm a little bit behind now to see where I am with some questions. Thinking about not biting off more than you can chew, what is the minimum number of characters to provide a teasing mystery without unreliable narrators? So
if you've got you first of all, you need to introduce your characters. What I find is, as long as characters are introduced properly, and there is sort of a core cast of about 4 or 5, not more than that. If you introduce other people, and there are a lot of people usually in thrillers, because you want your red herrings, you want your twists and turns, you want your police detective who finds the bone, all of these things. As long as they are introduced properly and the reader has time to assimilate them, and one of the good ways of doing that is giving them a handlebar moustache or giving them a shock. This is why people have shocks of white hair, or, you know, this is so the reader thinks, oh yes, that guy, I remember him. Oh, the girl who's got the scuffed stilettos, I remember her. As long as you give the reader the chance to absorb each character and don't just drop them in like that.
Yeah.
It's like real life. You know, if you go to a party and 6 people are introduced to you one after the other, you don't remember their names. But if somebody comes up to you and says, hi, I'm Gary, and you have a long talk, and at some point you might even say to him, I'm so sorry, I've forgotten your name. And he says, it's Gary, I've forgotten yours as well. Great. You'll remember him. It's just like real life.
Yeah.
Writing a book is just one big party, really.
Sal, this is an interesting question from Anita. So Anita asks, in The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, which is a massive bestseller,
yeah,
the story is based on an impossible situation as children are murdered as soon as they enter the death camp. How did John Boyne get away with something so important?
I honestly, I've got no idea how to answer that. You know, he made a very brave decision.
Yeah.
He pulled it off and it worked. I don't know how many full starts he had at it. I don't know. You know, with that book, I imagine there was a moment of inspiration and he thought, I'm going to make this work. But I can't. I'm so sorry. I wish I'd be very, very good at this if I could answer that. I can't possibly answer it. But I mean, that is jumping into the void, you know.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, how can you keep the reader in suspense if you also include chapters from the villain's point of view?
Well, just don't give anything away. I mean, well, there's 2 things. So I take that back, give loads away. The point is, if the reader knows something that the protagonist doesn't, that's even more suspenseful, because they know if she opens that cupboard, the viper is going to bite her. So while she's walking around the room and doing this and doing that, you're thinking, don't open the cupboard, don't open the cupboard. And then she opens the cupboard, doesn't she? And then what happens? It's another chapter and it's a different point of view. Oh my God.
We're coming up to the last couple of questions now. And I've got to say, Stephen's questions have been brilliant. And I wish there was some kind of way I could put emojis on the chat. I think there is actually. Because some of the comments in chat have just been wonderful. They've made me laugh. They've also made me smile. I love the fact that some of you have been helping, you know, talk about Show Don't Tell in a kind of side channel while this been's going on.
We're going to do Show Don't Tell again, aren't we?
Yes. Yeah. So, yes, we are. Jennifer's just shown me how to emojis, so I now know that for future reference. But I think we've got 1 or 2 last questions. So this one, I don't know who this came from, but what about if there was a scandal in the MC's past and she refers to it on the first pages? Should I mention the scandal soon? I've heard not to keep your reader wondering about the scandals for too long. Yeah,
I mean, it's basically what I said.
Yeah,
you know, you can drop hints, but don't. What did I say here? Let me consult my list. Hold on. I said, your reader won't expect to understand it all during the first few pages. This is a very forgiving genre, but they will trust that you will explain it later, hopefully sooner rather than later. And as long as they get a sense of what's going on pretty quickly, all will be well.
Yeah.
I hope that answers.
Yeah. I think it does. Okay. Last one from Jay Flood. I'm working on the end of a murder mystery. Any tips? Well, I'm hoping that the list, some of the things we've covered in the list there will provide the tips. But anything else out to close out? Any kind of final tips?
If you've got through the whole book, the thing is, with this kind of book, you've got to know your ending before you start writing. You really have. So if you've got through the whole book and you're trying to tie it up, you've made a bit more work for yourself. It's not that you can't do it. So the tip is go back and read the book from the beginning, and look at where you can look at the arrows pointing you through the book, and then so that's quite a long way of doing it. If you don't want to do that and you haven't plotted the ending, you've got a big job ahead of you. There's no easy answer. You've got to sit down and work it out.
Yeah.
And good luck. I mean, this is, I always say this. I said this the other week. I always give these answers. All of you, well done so much. You're doing such a difficult thing here, and you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears into it, and it will pay off. And even if I'm saying that's not working, or this won't work, or you shouldn't do that, you're trying, you're doing it. It's remarkable what you're all doing. So just keep doing it.